Nicole here. All right, Sun and Taurus, composite Sun and Taurus. This is a relationship that we've got this earthy second house energy which deals with the concrete real world. Taurus has to do with our five senses. It's our experience of this world while we're here in our physical bodies. So if you place that sort of energy over a sun sign of a relationship, the relationship itself will have a solidity to it. It will have a steadiness, and it will have sort of it's a relationship that needs some purpose, okay? This could have been a relationship that was a little slow to warm up or slow to get started. But overall, it's a couple that is going to enjoy the pleasures of life together. The relationship needs a certain amount of opportunities to enjoy the sensual pleasures, okay? So that should be, an important part of this combination. Now, let's go through the houses. First house, Taurus Sun, composite Sun in the first house. This type of relationship, this is kind of like our Aries Sun in the second house. This is a relationship that requires, again, the use of the physical body and adventures that are using the physical body. This makes me think of, a couple that perhaps when you put the composite Sun in the first house, it's like it sort of amplifies everything that sun stands for in my mind. So it's a relationship that's going to be very important to both of the partners because it's a first house composite Sun, and it's going to be important because it's going to be a relationship that requires this couple to exercise their experience of this world through their physical bodies and through their five senses. So this could be a couple that enjoys perhaps exercising together, literally like working out, or having sex. This is a very sexy placement for a Taurus Sun, actually. And they need to have something in their life that they're building together. You're combining earth and fire, and this is that combination that requires, like I said, a purpose, something you're working towards. Now, second house Taurus Rules the second house, so Taurus Sun would be very happy there. This is going to be a relationship that's quite stable, quite traditional, security-oriented. The earning of an income and providing for the relationship's financial security will be an important part of what this couple sort of moves towards. And this will be a relationship that focuses on, possessions, and could have some issues of possession depending on the sun signs and moon signs and everything else, the natal charts of the two partners. You could have a couple that, there's a tendency to sort of, once your Taurus energy once it's in a position or once it's moving, it just continues moving at that same rate, or it stays in that same position. So this could be an energy of a couple that could be a little stagnant and gets stuck at times. So depending on, again, the signs and the natal charts, that could be good. If you've got people who are looking for security, it could give a really strong, solid sense of security, or it could be something that feels stagnant and feels trapped to our signs that, fire or air, or, those signs that are a little bit more interested in dynamically moving away from whichever position they're already in. But in all in all, the Taurus Sun in that second house is happy. It's happy there. It's going to be a couple that has an appreciation of again, food is a big Taurus, keyword. It's those pleasures of the body, sexuality, perhaps even the arts, or music, enjoying these Venusian pleasures that we get to take part in as human beings. Third house, this is our house of Gemini. So Taurus in the third house, this is a kind of an interesting combination, right? Because we've got a sun sign that has to do with keeping things still. It has to do with the status quo. Taurus likes things to be consistent and to be regulated and to know what to expect, okay? You put this in the Gemini house, which has to do with multiplicity and, not necessarily consistency. It's more to do with the excitement of the new idea, the new conversation, the new connection. So this would be a couple that would require probably a consistent dose of socializing and being kind of out in the mix with other people and having new experiences. It also puts a little bit of a cerebral quality or a communicative quality to this relationship. It's a Taurus Sun, which is not so much interested in conversation, but you put it in the Gemini house, and then it requires this part of the couple will be activated, that will require conversation. Now you move into the fourth house, the Cancer house. This is Cancer and Taurus are both interested in security, so Taurus is pretty happy here. This is definitely very traditional, homey. This is a couple that will want to be together at home watching Netflix or Amazon Prime, whatever. And there's commitment. You know, they will want to be committed to one another. There's a sweetness here, the ability to nurture each other, and Taurus Sun is quite happy here in this placement. So it's a relationship that feels very, contained and safe. Now, the fifth house, this is our Leo house. The fifth house has to do with self-expression. It's also a fixed sign, just like Taurus is. You put the Taurus Sun in the fifth house, and you're combining some sort of artistic elements together. You know, we have Taurus, which is an appreciator of the five senses, and then we mix it with this Leo house, which is the house of self-expression and ego expression and being seen. And this to me is a couple that's like a couple that where they're artists, you know. I wouldn't be surprised if you looked at some artists back in history who've had tumultuous kind of fiery relationships if they didn't have this kind of a placement, at least a fifth house composite sun, if not, maybe in Taurus or in Scorpio, or, this adds a lot of passion and intensity and focus to this composite sun. It gives it some drive and it heats it up. Now moving into the sixth house, our Virgo house. This is the house of the service that we render here on Earth, on this three-dimensional mortal realm, right? You put Taurus there. Taurus is happy there. It's an earthy house, so it knows what it's supposed to do. This would be a couple where they probably were just the quiet couple that live in your neighborhood. You don't hear much about. They mow their lawn on Saturdays, and they belong to the PTA, and they kind of do their duties and show up when they're supposed to show up. And it's very kind of a responsible, reliable, dependable placement for this sun. If you have two people who have a lot of fire or, or a lot of airy or even Pisces, like ungrounded energy, this could be good because it could help them have a little bit of focus and ground them as individuals, but it can also be boring. It could feel like a relationship where it's just all work and no play. So there's that element. Just depends on the natal charts once again. Moving into our seventh house, this is our house of Libra. This has to do with relating, right? Relationships and how two people or two things relate to one another, and it's about finding harmony between disparate elements. Taurus and Libra are both ruled by Venus, so they have that in common with one another. There's an appreciation again of the Taurus appreciates more sort of this sensual. A lot of Taurus. There's so many Taurus hairdressers, which is really funny. So it's like creating something beautiful, but with the hands. Whereas Libra is more about appreciating beauty, appreciating a fine painting or a piece of music, or it's the idea of the beauty. So you put these two together, and this is a couple that would be, again, you have that reliability and that consistency of the Taurus energy, but it's also got this sort of Libra charm and this Libra sparkle to it. And perhaps this is a couple that's quite elegant. You have that Venusian appreciation of nice things when you put this Taurus sun into this seventh house. And also it's going to be, again, all the Taurus placements really are happy with commitment. Taurus sun likes commitment. In this Libra house of commitment and partnership, this is a nice placement. It's an elevated kind of a placement in my mind. Now moving into the eighth house, you've got a Taurus sun relationship in the eighth house of Scorpio. Scorpio is also a fixed energy like Leo and Taurus, and it's quite intense. This is the axis of possession. So jealousy, possession, compulsion, all of these issues could be things that come up for this couple. These issues of, wanting to possess each other, and any actually Taurus sun or Scorpio sun in a composite chart, there will be these themes of wanting to own each other in a sense, right? Doesn't do very well with open relationships and relating to other people. This is quite intense, and this is Taurus sun in that eighth house is sensual, and it is passionate, and it is life or death, and it is all the way in or all the way out. It's very extreme. This is super sexy, but yes, these issues of wanting to have control over the partner, that could be an area that this relationship or thing that this relationship brings out in partners. Now, Taurus Sun in the 9th house, the Sagittarius house. Sagittarius and Taurus energy are quite different from one another. We have a mutable fire sign with Sagittarius, and we have this fixed earth sign with Taurus. Taurus energy likes to kind of stay put. It likes to stay home. It likes consistency. It likes routine. Sagittarius is all about exploring outside of those boundaries. So when you put these two together, they're not super happy together. They're not necessarily the best bedfellows, but I would say the Taurus energy with the Sag, it would fire it up a little bit. Maybe this would be a couple that would appreciate travel from a place of maybe luxury travel, maybe traveling or going and seeing things, doing it with some style, and not to be too cliched with the house rulerships, but I would say this 9th house has to do with expansion and growth, and you put a Taurus house there, or Taurus Sun there, and it's going to be a couple that's really focused on learning and growing together and doing it in a way that's quite consistent, and perhaps taking a class together or teaching together. If they were a couple where they were maybe both teachers or counselors or gurus of some kind, this would be a nice placement because it would give them a stick-to-itiveness that sometimes Sagittarius lacks, and a little bit of a realism that sometimes Sagittarius also lacks. Sagittarius can be a little overly optimistic, and vice versa. Maybe it would give them a little more of a risk-taking nature as this Taurus Sun. Wouldn't hurt for that Taurus Sun to be a little more risk-taking. Moving into the 10th house is our Capricorn house. Geez, you put Taurus, this Venusian-ruled sign that has to do with the finer things in life, into this 10th house in Capricorn, this Capricorn 10th house, which is at the top of the chart, has to do with status and, how we appear in the world. And this is a couple that will be well-heeled. They will show up in the finest, even if they're not presenting through their clothing or their cars or their outer, material goods. They will be a couple that has a certain air to them where they would feel refined. There'd be a little refinement there. Also traditional, quite, they've got their way of doing things and that's how they do them. And they don't really veer from that path. Of course, this placement would suggest this is a couple that could be seen out in the public through business or through some sort of enterprise that they're doing together, and they probably would be quite successful at it, depending on where Venus falls and the cusp ruler of the 10th house, etc., and where that falls and the aspects being made to it. If you saw nice aspects between Venus and the ruler of the cusp of the MC of the relationship, then it's probably a couple that's well off financially. So this is a good placement. You've got Earth and Earth. Now, moving into the 11th house is the Aquarius house. This is the 4th of the fixed signs. Just like Taurus is fixed, it's fixed air. Aquarius and Taurus, even though they're both fixed signs, are so different from one another. And the thing that they hold in common, in my mind, is just their stubbornness to stick to their personal values or their personal ideals. I feel like all the fixed signs kind of have an opinion about how the world is or how it should be, and they stick to that, and it's really hard to sway them from that opinion. So Taurus Sun, quite fixed. Aquarius house is going to add a little bit of a quirkiness to it. So you would still have the Taurian qualities of being quite immovable, but in this Aquarius house, it would give them an eccentricity. So it could be a couple that they do things in a way that's a little bit oddball or a little different, a little unique. This is the one placement, and Gemini too, I suppose, but with Taurus I mean the 3rd house, where I could see this Taurus couple being more open to a relationship that's not necessarily just monogamous, but even so, anytime you have Taurus or Scorpio, this is dealing with those issues of possessing and wanting to own the partner. And so in this type of a partnership, these themes will definitely come up. So this is going to be, to me, the themes that you will see will be freedom of the individual versus, this partnership that needs to feel like it's a united entity, like it's a solid force or solid, I don't even know how you say it. It's a solid thing. We'll just use the word thing. That works. So these themes, though, you have jealousy and issues of perhaps from one partner and the other one needing freedom, this type of thing. Now, last house, 12th house, Pisces is our Pisces house. Taurus Sun in the Pisces house to me feels, I can see this go in a few ways. First way I can see this go is Taurus is about the sensual body, okay? It's about the physicality of the body. Pisces is about the opposite. Pisces is about the things that are ephemeral and that are ethereal, that we can't touch, taste, hold, possess. So this relationship is one that could have kind of a quality of wanting to be brought here into, the real world, but having an elusiveness to it. Okay, so I can see this element to it, and I can also see when you apply that, I can also see this being a very sensual love affair that is sort of under wraps, that people maybe don't know about. Maybe when you put the sun of a relationship in the 12th house, it gives it a quality of it being clandestine in a sense, and not in a negative way, not like an affair necessarily, but just it gives it this sacred private quality that other people aren't invited to participate in. So, and it also can give a feel like people just don't know that their relationship exists. They don't see it because it's in this, foggy 12th house. So this relationship could be one, it's going to require this. You put Taurus in any of the water houses, and it's a relationship that likes to have a lot of one-on-one time at home, or just private time between the two people. It needs that. So, all right, that's my take on Taurus, the Taurus composite sun through the 12 houses. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. Okay.